afraid of this?
I don't look very healthy.
You know, that you hit that gavel too hard, right off the head's going right off and hit you.
There is none.
Never been air conditioning in here.
There's a lot of hot air in this room, so it's gonna get warm.
Don't be hard on yourself.
I wasn't speaking for me. We had a central iron installed in my house. Yeah, my air conditioner's doesn't shut off in days.
We're all set, Your Honor, whenever you're
All set? Okay. Good evening, and thank you for remotely attending tonight's council meeting. I would like to ask for your patience and cooperation as we continue using the technology available until we are able to hold in-person meetings. The camera in the council chambers is set up to show those members of council attending in person. The platform we are using this evening has a raise hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right-hand corner. When we reach a point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click that button and be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Here.
Councilor Dillabaugh,
Here.
Councilor Fisher,
Here.
Councilor Kennedy,
Here.
Councilor Powers,
Here.
Councilor Reish,
Here.
Councilor Scamperly,
Here.
quorum present.
We have 3 presentations tonight. The first presentation will be an update on Kelly Park from Tom and Debbie Hannon.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the rest of the council for your time tonight. As best as I recall, I think we addressed council end of January, early February regarding the Kelly Park, and we just thought it would be a good idea to give you an update. Last week we had an opportunity to meet with the Assistant City Manager, Andrea and Shane Brown. Provided them a bit of an update and communicated with them as to some of the plans that are going to take place in the next couple months. That said, since our last meeting, despite a few setbacks related to the COVID, we were able to secure a contract that's been signed, and Larry Morley Construction will be doing the work at Kelly Park. The estimated start time will approximately be 5 to 6 weeks, so depending on his work and his work schedule. So we're looking probably the end of July, early August. Probably take a week to 2 weeks, probably a couple weeks to complete with the work. So at this point in time, we'll just have to wait to see what his schedule is like. But that's the approximate update that he provided us. And where he's in the process of ordering the materials for the park. When we met with Andrea and Shane, just a couple things as far as the assistance from the city. Number one is that there is a meter across the park, more on the Patterson Street side, that's a live meter. So it looks like that we will be just digging a small trench across the park provide some electricity for the work that's going to be done and probably for some of the lighting subsequent to the project being completed. We'll do the trenching, and it may necessitate a cut across the sidewalk as we move west towards the church. And Shane graciously said that the city DPW should be able to just fill that in. The other thing that the city was going to provide for us is just some temporary fencing for security. I think it would just, Shane, frankly, just some orange fencing with electrical ring, and or put some stand and just some posts in, and then maybe Larry could do that. But just for, just for the protection of his equipment and some of the work as it's being done as far as the construction is concerned.
Can you speak
Fundraising is
louder, Tom?
ongoing. What's that?
Can you speak louder?
I'm sorry, sure. Sorry about that. So fundraising is ongoing. At this point, we're just slightly below what the expenditure on the contract is concerned, but we're confident that we'll meet and exceed hopefully the amount to expend that's going to be planned to be expended for the construction of the park. I think that was it, but we just thought it was important to give you an update because again, the city's going to be, involved a bit. I guess the last thing is that there are going to be some stands, some information stands, and before the former recreation Matt put a furlough, that he had purchased some of the signs type of thing that I think you can see down at the Bisbee Park, some of the, that we have inside. And we're going to have a couple of those, maybe 4 of those, that we would hope that you already have a contact with the city that will pay for it. But Shane said he would do the ordering as long as he got the information from Matt as to who, I can't remember who it was, who was going to provide that to us, but they said they'd be willing to do that for us as well. But we'll pay for it. Technically, they already have a relationship with them. We just thought it'd be easier if they did that. So that's one other thing that the city was going to provide to us. Andrea, you were there as well. Anything else that we discussed that maybe we should discuss with council that you can recall? Fossil, yeah, Fossil. So it's a thing. The name of the company is Fossil. So there's going to be 4 signs. I don't know, 2 by 2. I'm not really sure the size, but they'll be embedded right into the brickwork at the park. The expected park. Yeah. The other thing too is that certainly when we have a firm set date for the groundbreaking, we'll invite representatives for the city, and we'll make it either mayor, or assistant city manager, whoever, make a determination as to who you'd like there to attend. And we'll give you as much of a heads up as possible as far as that's concerned. We might have a photo shoot for a groundbreaking here shortly, just to maybe get something in the paper and generate maybe a little more interest as far as fundraising, but there'll be a formal one when we literally are putting the shovel into the ground, and as I say, end of July, early August, somewhere around that time frame is what our hopefully the plans are at this point. So. Any questions from council as regarding the...
Sounds great.
Yeah, good. And as I say, we're looking forward to it, and we're very pleased that the bid is local. We've been working with Larry, and he's been very, very cooperative, and we certainly expect he'll do a great job, and the city will be proud of the work that he did, and it'll really enhance the park. And someday, hopefully, make it, for those that knew Chuck very well, and even for those that don't, a nice area to stop and reflect on everything that he did for the city of Ogdensburg.
Yep.
All right. And lastly, as I ended my last meeting, is that I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity that said we are still accepting donations, and anybody that would like to make a donation to Kelly Park, they can send it to WRI at 814 Green Street, Ogdensburg, New York, and any and all donations, no matter the size, are more than welcome. All right. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kathy, I've just got 3 messages that they can't hear, so we're really gonna have to yell.
You are, and like I said, you can always,
Because they're like calling in.
if you treat your speaker or your microphone as a legitimate microphone and you hold it closer to your mouth, you will find that it does
It's
get
this one,
louder.
they can't
It's
hear
the
the
podium,
speaker.
they're struggling with. They can't hear anything on the podium.
I was wondering if it was on.
Oh, it's definitely on.
Okay. No,
We can try to make an adjustment on the microphone
Okay.
itself.
I
the podium.
just said that I would
Thank you. Appreciate it.
let it be known.
The next presentation will be regarding the impact of staff and budget overtime reductions at the police department and will be made by Lieutenant Rob Westcott.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I wanted to do this presentation to the Council and the Mayor so you're all informed and understand that the impact of the Ogdensburg Police Department had due to the recent approval of the Council Resolution Bill Number 37, which specified layoffs and cuts to the Ogdensburg Police Department's overtime budget. As you're aware, the Ogdensburg City Council voted in a special meeting held on May 6, 2020, to lay off 4 police officers as well as reduce the 2020 overtime budget by 40%. This has created some significant impact upon the operation of the city's police department. I will go through each area and explain the direct impacts they've had. First is our staffing levels. The direction to the city manager was to lay off 4 police officers. This number was put out in the public council agenda preceding the council meeting, special meeting. Within a day or so of that agenda going to the public, the chief of police announced his retirement. There was also already 1 open position. Subsequently, on May 6th, when the resolution was discussed at the special meeting, there were amendments made to this resolution. We were expecting one of those amendments would be to change the number of layoffs. That were proposed, as the chief had announced his retirement and there was an open position already. The amendment did not address this line item of the resolution, and despite the retirement and the open position, the council voted to keep the number at 4. In discussions by then Chief of Police Andrew Kennedy and then City Manager Sarah Purdy, the actual 4 officers who were to be affected by this action were identified by name and they were submitted to her. Officers Andrew Lang, Christopher Evans, Brandon Lummis, and Ryan Brown were all named and knew of their potential and impending layoffs. 3 officers immediately began to seek other employment options. As a direct result of the resolution, Andrew Lang, Christopher Evans, and Brandon Lummis have all transferred to other departments. This is a significant loss of an investment to the city by these 3 officers. It takes about 10 months to get an officer hired, trained, and counting as manpower on the road. Other communities are now taking advantage of the city's investment. If and when these officers are allowed to be replaced, we will be paying those costs again. This is significant monetarily, but is also significant in the fact that the recruitment has not only been an issue for us, but for police work in general. The amount of individuals interested in pursuing a career in local law enforcement has sharply declined. The amount of people to select from on a civil service list has decreased, and this is compounded by the fact that we now share a list with the county. When multiple agencies are picking off the same list, we are competing for the same candidates. But also, given the choice, those few candidates will be looking for stability and will certainly have to take pause when they have ability to look at offers from other local agencies. We lost great people and great assets who were quickly hired by other agencies who saw their significant value. Since 2007, the Ogdensburg Police Department has faced some of its worst staffing and retention problems. The department has hired 35 new personnel since 2007. That is a significant number of personnel to hire and train. Whenever we have hired to get up to full complement, we then lose personnel before we ever realize the benefit of it. Our authorized manpower is 28. A couple of years ago, with council approval, we went to 29. And this was due to the arguments made by the unions at the time over the impact that the airport had on our officers' workload. I do not believe we ever got the 29th person. During the 2018 budget, we were cut back to 28 again for budgetary reasons. With the added position of the SRO, the School Resource Officer, in 2019, which was not backfilled, we essentially went to 27. In addition to the four positions previously mentioned, we have 3 officers, 1 patrolman and 2 detectives that are out on work-related injuries. 1 detective should be back to work in about another month, but when that detective returns, another will be leaving for about a month, starting at the end of July. This leaves only 2 investigators for the summer months, and I do not anticipate the return of the other patrolman or detective anytime soon, if at all. We have a patrolman going off mid-July for surgery on a work-related injury with an expected recovery period of 8 weeks. We do still have 1 patrolman that is in field training, and if allowed to remain working for the city, he will count for manpower sometime around September. I'm telling you, we need him. Our day shifts are especially busy with the added duty of manning the airport and the call volume. When school was not in session, the SRO worked briefly on day shifts. He helped to alleviate the added workload of the airport and the call volume and had the potential to reduce overtime costs. With the departure of the above-mentioned officers, I've had to add the SRO back into a platoon to fill the shortages from the exodus of the officers. Even with him back, we are still down 10 officers through open positions and injuries. For a 28-man department, a department of our size, that's a 35% reduction in manpower, and it is significant. The SRO is an Ogdensburg City School District funded position that we get the benefit of using during the times that schools are off. As I stated earlier, I had to add the SRO back into our rotation, and with a significant reduction in manpower, I don't know that we'll be able to maintain that position. This would be a blow to our entire community. Recently, the SRO was restored due to both the Ogdensburg City School District and the city recognizing the significant community policing benefits of having an SRO in our schools, as well as being as prepared as possible for the critical incidents that do occur. We are not immune in Ogdensburg, New York from the tragedies we see nationwide in our schools. In his short time at the Ogdensburg City School District, Patrolman Joshua Vine made a significant impact in the lives of the students, the staff, and the faculty. The benefits of his presence were numerous. Many were not immediately seen, or many were immediately seen and tangible, but so many more were not. The connection that that position makes with our youth absolutely does create a safer school and a safer community. So you understand our minimum staffing levels. Our minimum staffing on the road is 2 officers and a dispatcher. The expectation to this, or the exception to this, is that on the weekends from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. on Fridays, our minimum staffing is 3 officers plus a dispatcher. This is the absolute minimum the road can safely operate. There is also contractual time off afforded to officers. There are periods of the year where contractual time usage increases. This is typically during the summer months, where we already limit the number of officers that can be out at any one time, and the extended school breaks due to obvious reasons of family, and the fall. Due to the cut in staffing levels and the usage of contractual time off, the shifts will most certainly be minimally staffed during these times, but more likely will need to be staffed with overtime themselves. I'll address the reduction in the budgeted overtime. The reduction of our 2020 budgeted operational overtime was significant. Operational overtime went from $177,784 to $63,784. Incidentally, that's not even the cost of 1 patrolman in benefits, salary, and fringe. It states the obvious to say that the police department is a 24/7 operation. As with any profession, we can only work so many hours in a day. They have days off, and as previously stated, they have contractual time off. Reduction in staffing levels directly increases the amount of overtime it takes to staff the shifts, and sometimes just to get the job done. By this, I mean to say that the very nature of police work is such that much of the overtime is very unpredictable. The need to call in manpower or hold over manpower is very real. Call volume is high, and over the last decade or so, our officers are increasingly answering calls that are more violent and more complicated in nature. Recent bail reform and discovery laws have put a tremendous amount of extra work on our department. Many police departments prosecutor's office and public defender's offices have added staff and created internal positions just to keep up with the workload of this added reform. We did not. The investigations unit is very active and very busy. The amount of search warrants for various crimes that are executed by investigations has increased significantly. We do ask for help from outside agencies as much as possible. However, these types of investigations are often time-consuming, labor-intensive, but they're also necessary to solve crimes, be proactive with the drug issue, and keep the community safe. Our department is called upon to make sure that many planned community events are a safe and fun atmosphere for both our citizens and our guests. These events are plentiful, and we just can't not staff them. Some require a significant amount of personnel to staff safely for both the public and our personnel. To recognize this and not to adequately staff them puts a significant liability on the city. The many events we are called upon to staff include the Battle of Ogdensburg reenactment, multiple Founders Day events, Memorial Day Parade, Seaway Festival, Bootleggers Weekend, Hosmer's Duathlon Summer Series, the Light Up the Night Parade, and many others. There is additional talk of the OG River Fest 2-day concert and a professional fishing tournament in the future. These would add a significant impact on our resources. All of these events simply cannot be staffed without operational overtime. These events alone would take much of our entire amended overtime budget. In addition to the events, officers are also called upon to provide security for between 13 and 18 flights a week at the Ogdensburg International Airport. The hours required to provide that security, not including the administrative duties on the backside of it, is essentially equivalent to losing one full-time officer from the road. This does not take into account for delays, which are weather, mechanical, or even pilot timeout delays. Delays are often, and are particularly during the winter months. To my knowledge, the airport continually tries to recruit additional air carriers. If one does happen to sign on with the Bridge and Port Authority, I don't know that our manpower will allow us to maintain airport security in the long term. Additionally, to the airport, officers are required to make court appearances and attend mandatory training. And there are many other unplanned events, such as prisoner transports and other details asked of us. As much of this is done, keeping overtime in mind, but much of it just cannot be avoided, and in order to still maintain service to the community. Most area police departments are working a modified 12-hour schedule for road personnel. We were asked by council a few years back to look at the 12-hour shifts to try to reduce overtime. There is an upfront cost to the 12-hour shift, as each officer works 84 hours in a given pay period as opposed to 80. However, that is taken by the officers in straight time through an agreement. That upfront investment is seen as a way to help reduce overall overtime costs by dividing the department into 4 rotating platoons, which in theory adds personnel to each shift, and is supposed to reduce overtime expenses overall. To then start reducing staffing levels just drives the overtime cost back up. 12-hour shifts are also a recruitment tool. Without them, it makes it extremely difficult to compete with area departments and to retain employees once openings become available in other area departments. The nature of police work is such that officers are required to work nights, holidays, and weekends. Due to this, officers feel that the 12-hour shift increases their quality of life both on and off the job. We implemented the 12-hour shift about a year and a half ago, and if staffing levels decrease, the 12-hour shift will need to be looked at again. This will cause morale and retention issues, and future recruitment issues. At full staff, the 12-hour model really does have the potential to save overall. There are non-monetary effects to all of what I've spoken to this evening. Morale is imperative to the success of any organization, private or public, and ours has taken a significant hit. Health and safety is another. The fewer officers we have, the more our regular shift overtime will increase. Officers can only safely work so many hours. They're only allowed to work a maximum of 18 hours before minimally taking 6 hours off in between. This is for obvious health and safety issues. People who are tired get sick more often and make mistakes more easily. Keeping in mind airport security, community events, mandatory appearances, mandatory training, and many other unexpected events that come up, it is not unusual in the busy summer months for a shift to become so busy that additional resources have to be called in just to handle the call volume. Personnel becomes stretched thin, and it becomes difficult just to fill the regular shifts when overtime is needed. Time off is canceled first. When manpower is low, there may be no time to cancel. Due to the maximum amount of hours that officers can safely work and the minimum amount of hours they need to have off in between shifts, the forced pool will start to get smaller. That is to say that the result of all of this will be forced overtime. The Ogdensburg Police Department and its members are proud of what they do, and they strive to give all that is asked of them, while providing professional, courteous, and efficient service. However, to maintain all that is asked of the department, it is imperative that the department receives the resources it needs. The actual savings in overtime per the resolution is supposed to amount to $114,000. Keeping in mind all of what I said, I do not know what the actual savings by the end of the year will be. And I do not see how the department will not go over its revised 2020 operational overtime budget of $63,784, no matter how personnel is shifted or scheduled. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Well done.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any discussion?
So, you want 4 guys back?
Absolutely.
Any overtime?
Absolutely.
Do you think there's a possibility, since training for those officers has already been completed, right? The two of them were still in the academy, they successfully graduated the academy? So,
One had previously paid for his own academy.
okay,
He was simply here attending, he was hired into going through our field training program, which is a requirement of any police academy. Once he completed 160 hours for us, he was going to get his certificate for the police academy that he completed. The other officer, we did hire and send to the police academy. The police academy was put on pause due to COVID. It's going to be reconvened on July 6th. There's 1 week of training left. They're going to try to get everything in, and he will just be in the middle of completing his 160 hours. And hopefully we will be able to get him on his own sometime in August, sometime early September. It is something that when you're short, you want to try to get them on the road, but you also don't want to not have them trained properly because they're a liability and a safety issue to themselves and to the city.
Anyone else? Anything?
Obviously, without this staff and the additional potential flights coming into the Ogdensburg International Airport, we're going to be looking at significant time and no resources.
Well, like I said, we are down 10 officers now.
Right.
The airport additionally really takes 1 officer, all told throughout the week with the hours dedicated to the airport. Just to continue to stretch us thin does make it harder to staff that airport. It's going to make it difficult in the long term to be able to staff it.
It gives you, I mean, it's a significant strain on your department just for the fear of the unknowns. I mean, what you have coming down the pike, potential workers' comp issues, anything coming down the pike. You've got nothing to fall back on.
We can't control injuries and we can't control workman's comp. The issue is when we're minimally staffed, we don't drop below minimum staffing to supply security for the airport. It's not safe for the officers. It was done years ago. It was never safe. That issue was addressed years ago. It was also at a time when the airport was a different classification where an officer could technically leave to go back up an officer on the road. They could continue to screen and they could continue with a flight. That's not the case anymore. The new classification of the airport is such that if our officer's not there, they can't screen. And at the end of the day, we're the Ogdensburg City Police Department, and our shifts are our priority. And we have to staff those first. And if I can't staff those, or they're stretched and on overtime, it's going to be awful hard to staff the airport. And guys and girls can only work so much overtime, and then eventually they just can't work anymore, and the extras have to go by the wayside.
I'm worried about your burnout rate.
It's an extreme concern. I don't want to see the airport go. I think it's a benefit for the city to be providing the security. I think it's a benefit for the Ogdensburg Police Department to be involved and for the city to be involved. But I don't know how we continue to do all the things that are asked of our department with the resources continually being taken from us.
Well, ultimately, public safety comes first before the airport. I was using the airport as an example. I'm not looking to
Our
use that.
shifts absolutely
There's many issues here that need to be looked at that simply weren't looked at, in my opinion.
So I'd like to know, Rob, we're a population of 10,500, we're a city. We got what, 28 police officers, you said?
We're authorized for 28.
How come Encina's got 2,000 more people than us? They got 21 policemen.
It's mine.
Passan's got like 15,000 people, they got 14 policemen. Canton's got only 11 police, and they got like 6,000, 7,000 people. Like, why do we have so many police officers? Can we not do something different on scheduling? I mean, they got shifts over in Passan where there's one guy on.
Well, I would argue that working a shift in the village with one guy is completely unsafe. The village of Potsdam also has 2 police
But
departments.
it's coming down to money. Everybody's coming down to money. We're going to be cut back on sales tax. We're getting cut back on the state. We got to do something. I mean, I don't want to fire anybody. I didn't take this job to come in here and start firing people and fighting with people, but the money, the crunch is going to be there. It's not going to happen right now. We're just trying to do it right now, but down the road, we're going to get in trouble. And if the city goes bankrupt or something happens, we go to a village, everything's thrown out the window. Contracts, everything's all gone. We all start fresh again. And I don't want that. Because you know why I don't want that? Because guys like you, when you retire, the old guys, they're going to lose a lot of their perks. People don't realize that. And I got a lot of friends on the police department, fire department, and I don't want to see them lose their perks. And they will lose it if the city goes bankrupt or if the city happens to go to a village. We got to work together. I mean, there's 7 police officers down at the police office in a day shift. We don't need 7 guys there in a day shift. Unless you can prove to me that we're having a real...
Counselor, I would say there's not 7 patrolmen on shift during the day
Well, I'll
shift.
tell you one thing.
We do have administrative staff on duty. The chief of police, the lieutenants, those are
I was
full-time
told
jobs. They have positions and they have duties to fulfill. We have an investigative staff that also have duties to fulfill. And you're mentioning perks, but those are benefits that officers have worked for their entire career.
And I agree with it.
Promised to them when they retire.
Yeah,
I
I agree.
wouldn't call that a perk. I would call that a benefit of their career and of their retirement.
And I don't want to see them lose it.
Neither do I. I'm just simply here to explain to you.
I realize that. I'm not arguing with you. I think you guys are doing a great job. Seriously.
I do appreciate that.
I just want to make sure that if we're going to hire more police officers, there's got to be a way to get it down. I'm sorry.
I understand your concerns. It's also my understanding that the village of Messina is not 21 officers.
That's where I got all the information from that.
Okay.
Just so you know.
I can get all those numbers and come back to council if you'd like. But the structure we had at the police department in Ogdensburg worked. We have significant crimes that happen here. We're an extremely busy department. We're very successful. We have a high solvability rate. And I think we've done a fantastic job keeping on top of the issues in the city. I'm simply here tonight to explain to the council and the mayor the impact on the department from the cuts.
I realize
That's
that.
all I can do.
And I'm the one that made the cuts, voted for the cuts, because I personally think there's just too many police officers in the city. I really do. And I'll tell you, if you talk to the people on the street, a lot of them think the same way. I'm just letting you know. If you can prove to me somehow else, I'll change my vote, go the other way, and hire more guys, but I gotta have proof. And I think some of the other guys here do. I mean,
It's like code enforcement. They're at 50%. It's, our financials are hurting every department in the city and hurting our citizens. It's a situation we're in, and we do appreciate your department and your hard work.
oh, definitely. I'm all for this. I just want to let you know that, so maybe we can work something out on it.
Anyone else, or? Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
Lieutenant. Our next presentation will be regarding the fire chief position and will be made by Jason Bouchard, President of IAFF, Local 1799.
Is he online?
He's online. Do you know what he is logged in under? Fire department, I'm guessing. Okay. Can you hear us? But can you ask him if he can hear you? They're unmuted. Does anyone know what he was logging in under? I've got fire department. I do not have Jason individually. I do have him. He's here. Give me one moment, please. Brett, can you let him know I've unmuted him? Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Good evening, members of the City Council, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of Ogdensburg. As Mr. Mayor said, my name is Jason Bouchard. I am the president of Local 1799. Given some of the issues contained on tonight's agenda, my presentation has been trimmed considerably. However, as we've brought the citizen and council attention in previous meetings, our department has been without a fire chief since January 21st of this year. We intend and still strongly believe that a permanently appointed full-time chief is a necessity. A necessity not only in terms of our departmental function and operation, but for the overall safety of our great city and its citizens. With that being said, I will be available throughout the meeting if anyone has any questions regarding our union. I thank you for your time and I hope for a productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no public hearings tonight, and this brings us to public appearance. At this time, if you would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature. The city clerk will recognize you and unmute one person at a time, and you have 5 minutes. No one, Kathy?
There's no one yet, sir.
They're all on their boat.
They can't hear anything.
Yeah, that's the
3 or 4
problem.
people said they wanted to address us and they jumped off.
Really?
Because it's for the second meeting in a row. Nothing can be heard.
Still nothing? No one? Okay.
There's no one with a raised hand.
Okay. Next we have our consent agenda. The claims.
Your Honor,
Yes.
If I may interrupt you, an individual has just raised their hand.
Okay.
Would you like to?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the person who has raised their hand is registered as Scott McRoberts, and I will unmute you now, sir. It looks like your line is open.
Good evening, Council. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. This is going to be really brief. I just wanted everyone to be aware that people that are tuning in via internet cannot hear any of the presenters. I know this was difficult last time as well, but before the next council meeting, if we could figure out another way for us to be able to hear the presentation and to get clearer voices from the council members, that would be really helpful. Sorry, this is Ian McGregor. That's Scott, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I just point point out that I've already asked for that. I thought it would be better at this meeting, and, you know, if we have to go to Zoom or something else, you know, we really need to make sure our meetings they're supposed to be live broadcast as well, and we should be working on that before the next meeting.
Kathy, can we use an alternate location where the public could attend? Like, can we do this outside? Like, can we do this at an alternate location so that way people can come and hear us? Like, socially distance in their lawn chairs or something? Because it just seems like we keep talking about it and talking about it. So I didn't know, is that something that can be done? Because I have no issue if we need to move a location and have microphones set up and people can attend. Like, I think people are really frustrated.
Certainly something we could look into. Is my understanding that we're under the current executive order is the maximum public attendance of 25. Is that correct, Andrew? Yes. So
We've looked into that as an entity in Albany as well, as to be able to hold our meetings. We haven't held a meeting since, a bi-monthly meeting since February, and we've looked into outdoor venues, and of course, you know, you're suspect to weather.
Yeah.
And other factors as well.
I didn't even know if we could use Lockwood or, and then at least people who wanted to speak, maybe we could put a speaker outside. People could even sit in their cars, broadcast the speaker outside, so at least it's out in the air. People could sit in their vehicles in the parking lots, put them on 2 different sides, and if they wanted to speak, they could come in. I don't know, I'm just trying to we're getting so many complaints, just trying to come up with some type of solution, if it would work. I don't know.
I'm happy to look into that for you.
We can wait at our cars at restaurants. I mean, people might tune in their vehicles if they could or sit in their own vehicles. I don't know.
Okay. I'm
Build
happy
a
to
drive-in.
let council know.
Was the IT guy brought in to try to make this better?
He was. He
He
was
was?
actually here. He is the one that came up with the suggestion for the webcam at the last meeting so that everyone could see you in your first personal appearance. He's also the one that suggested that the line be run so that the phone could be placed at the rear of the room because that's where the speakers project from. The previous meeting, the audio was here next to me. Everyone could hear me perfectly. As we went further around the room, the public had trouble hearing, which is why the suggestion was made for the audio to be placed at the back of the room where the audio transmits down into the audience in an effort to pick it up better for those in attendance.
Maybe we could reach out to the county or maybe another municipality that's not having these issues. We seem to be the problem children here, so.
I think it's just the physical
I-
makeup of the place.
There's nothing I would love more than
No,
for this to be
I'm just saying,
perfect.
it just seems it should be simple with microphones and technology.
We'll certainly do that, absolutely.
And if we're allowed to have 25 in, we should say that as well. If, you know, that they've increased it from 10 to 25, there is room for people to attend.
I agree with you, Counselor. However, it's my understanding the open meetings law requirement is that we can't refuse anyone. The governor's executive order does offer for the live streaming, as you've mentioned, but I don't know if it's council's position that they want to say 25 can be permitted to attend and others cannot. That's all.
That's what the executive order is for.
You're absolutely right. I didn't know if that was council's position, so.
I also got a request that somebody would like to hear, they didn't hear anything that Rob said. They didn't know if he could call in his presentation because they couldn't hear any of it and they wanted to hear it, or if we could maybe get a copy of that because they couldn't hear him clearly.
Will it be in the minutes?
I can certainly add it as an attachment to the minutes if that's what everyone prefers.
Yeah, I just had a request that they couldn't hear it and didn't know if he could, because they could hear Jason when he called in loud and clear. So that way, that was the question I was asked.
Is it videoed still?
Yes, sir, it is.
Does it post, I mean, the actual,
We've been posting the GoToWebinar version simply because it's been a better version than the room. We can post both if that's
That's what I
what
mean.
people prefer. Yes.
you know, they may pick up one better than the other. If one doesn't work, go to the second, I mean.
The microphones here and the microphone at the podium are tied directly into the video camera at the rear of the room that records the meeting as it's taking place. The webinar software is tied into the audio from those calling in to participate, and with the deputy city clerk's phone at the rear of the room. But there's no direct tie-in to the audio in the room, and that's where we have the gap right now.
I think both of them. I mean, you're not missing a beat.
Absolutely, we can do that. That's not a problem at all.
Okay. Anyone have their hand raised to speak?
No one else.
Okay. Next, we have our consent agenda. That the claims as enumerated in general fund warrant number 11-2020 in the amount of $463,848.25, and library warrant number 11-2020 in the amount of $8,285.48, and capital fund warrant number 11-2020 in the amount of $125,476, and community development fund warrant number 11-2020 in the amount of $0, and community renewal fund warrant number 11-2020 in the amount of $0, as audited, be and same hereby are ordered paid. I so move.
Second.
City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Approved.
We have an appointment tonight. I will make a motion to appoint John St. Joseph's to fulfill the remainder of Linda Pellet's term on the planning board, term to begin June 22nd, 2020, and end December 31st, 2020. I so move.
Second.
City Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Approved.
And this brings us to items for council action. Our first item of business is a resolution approving a one-year extension of agreement between the City of Ogdensburg and St. Lawrence County in relation to the allocation and distribution of money collected from the sales tax and compensating use taxes imposed pursuant to Article 28 and 29 of the tax law, which was tabled at the June 8th, 2020 City Council meeting.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay. I'd like to say we still have the problem of the date, September 1st, 2020, to notify the county. I spoke to Chairman Joe Lightfoot twice this week, and he had concerns of moving it to September 1st, 2021, that it was late in the process, and so I said maybe we could do July 1st of 2021. We should know by then how negotiations are going, or if we would want to preempt, and maybe that could be considered of changing that date to July 1st, 2021.
What'd he say when you said that to him?
He was bringing it to the committee and legislators to vote on, which they're probably in the process of doing that right now. So we
And
could
just
either table it.
Table it and see what they do.
So, I thought that the attorney said it was an understanding that we could still negotiate, which, because it states in the resolution that is the whole purpose of the extension. The whole purpose was to extend the agreement to give us time to negotiate. And so I thought both attorneys agreed that the language was sound, and we still have another year to negotiate.
Yeah,
Well,
I think he was
there's
for sure, was he?
issues. John called the state comptroller, and I believe we were told that there shouldn't be a problem because the county and the state both approved it. The state does not approve it. They did not approve it. They were sent it, they saw it, September 1st, 2020. They were concerned about it also. Well, then, I'm speaking to Scott Goldie, he said, well, the county could take us to court, but likely they wouldn't win. So that's when I called Joe Lightfoot and told him of our concern. And I'm hoping that the county will change that date.
What does state comptroller have to say?
Just what he related,
The only part of the extension, as Mr. Goldie made last meeting, was just to extend the negotiation period. There's nothing in there that litigates that says we have to agree to anything at any time soon. This is an extension of the sales tax agreement. All this is it gives us a little more time, and I believe the reason why the county did it, according to Mr. Goldie, was based off the COVID pandemic and other fiscal issues that are addressed throughout the entire state regarding sales tax.
If you're
The
going to...
comptroller's office, as far as I'm concerned, and from what I've gathered, is genuinely concerned over sales tax. And Tim, feel free to jump in but the only concern I've seen out of the comptroller's office is the overall sales tax coming in throughout the whole entire state due to the pandemic. I've reached out to the comptroller's office, not over this, because I don't see the issue here. This just gives us more time to negotiate a successor agreement, and if we choose not to, then we choose not to.
If we're going to negotiate for into next year, and we're going to ask for data for the separation of the city and the county, not to be collected as a whole, but to separate the city and county to see how much sales tax comes in from the city and how much comes in for the county. So next year, in our negotiations, we'll both have numbers. So we won't be negotiating on emotions, or we think something might happen, or we think the city has less sales tax or less population. So why would we have to notify the county September of this year? It's that language has built a mistrust.
September of 2021, I think they're pushing it out to.
Right, but we have to notify them of our intent of September 1st this year. So if you're extending negotiations to next year, you would extend us having to notify them to next year and not have to notify them this year.
That's an extension. That's what an extension.
But they're not extending the date that we have to notify them by. And that's all we're asking, is just to change the September 1st, 2020 to September 1st, 2021. But if they feel like that's a little out far with this, if we should separate November, then let's make it July 1st of next year. But to notify them this year of our intent, we don't know our intent because we don't have the data to tell them our intent.
I believe that. I don't.
nor do we have the authority to preempt. We have to go to the Senate and the Assembly and get a bill
No
passed.
question. And that won't happen until next legislative session anyway.
So that's why we're saying we need more time to notify you. So you're extending the agreement a year. We appreciate that very much. But in the agreement, you need to extend the notification date so that we have time to do what we need to do to prepare. We would rather have a continuation agreement. It's not our wish to preempt. We don't know what that is, like Mike said. But we have to be prepared and do our due diligence, and we need time to do that before we can notify you. So the notification needs to be extended. And I don't see why September 1 is a problem. It wasn't.
The legislative session will be over.
Yeah.
By July 1st, the legislative session of next year will be over.
Yes, it will.
So,
But you know, maybe that date is still coming in, maybe we're still working hard to try and negotiate,
I
we're
get it.
close.
So you want more of the fact finding, and I think you and I can both attest to the fact that getting those numbers and those separation numbers from tax and finance out of Albany, near impossible.
Yeah.
We asked for it in the previous council during the successor agreement. I've personally asked through the comptroller's office for those numbers. The comptroller's numbers, we all have them, you've seen them. The tax and finance numbers, the actual hard line numbers from the city of Ogdensburg, I hope we can get them, but you're going to base it off, you might be basing, and I'm not looking to put the cart before the horse here, but you might be basing that off information that you may never get.
The question's not...
And just to, I'm sorry, just to go back, I'm fine with an extension to July, as far as fact finding, but I don't think we can continue to keep kicking this can down the road. And I'm all for getting the information, and I'll push to get it as well again. But this will be my third attempt trying to get these numbers, and they're very. You're not.
If I may, the question's not give us the numbers. The question is, will you change? And years ago, in business with the forms, I used to check city or you could check county. And what we want to ask the state is change your form. And just for data process collection, change the form and make it city and make it county. They have no data now. They can give us no data because it's all collected as one. It's all just checked county.
Well, the agreement wouldn't be through the state, it'd be through the county and the city.
The agreement's through...
We just pay the state.
Right.
Give them the money.
We need to ask them to change the form.
The state's not going to change it. We have to change the formula. You're talking about the formula?
No, the form.
The form.
The form that would show the sales tax collected inside the city.
Right.
And with that, we can go into next year's
See,
negotiation.
before this contract, you had all the counties, and then you had Ogdensburg, New York.
Is that in the original contract from 2000 to 2010?
So that's the sales tax form that
All right,
every
I got
business
you
has
now.
to fill out.
So we're just looking for record keeping going.
Yeah.
Right. So now, and what they based that last contract on the old data.
Yes,
And now the county wants to change it.
And that was in the original contract in
Right.
2000.
yes.
Very
So,
good.
And their
Now I
whole
got
premise
it.
was that we're losing population.
All right.
But with the dot, the whole county's losing
Still,
population.
you're going to,
the thing is,
Yeah,
the amount, the 6.44 that we get as our share was never based on population. It was based on 10 years of sales tax collected
Right.
and averaged. And the county keeps bringing up population, and there's been a population decrease in many towns, many villages, and their distribution is based on population. Ours was based on the data of 10 years collected. And we need that, so if we can get the state to agree to changing the form, we should have 2-3 quarters to have some data, and then the city and county can negotiate knowing what each is bringing in, and we make our decision. Right? But how do you make it, how do you say, we're going to do this or we're going to do that by September of this year? If you're going to extend the negotiations a year, you extend the deadline of us notifying them.
well, it might be by doing that, actually still being negotiating. I mean, together and collectively, we could be going to the state requesting the change instead of maybe one entity over another.
Chairman Lightfoot, yes, said we would both ask for it.
But I mean, yeah, okay, so now I get it. Now, it's not that I didn't get it, it's just,
so the state doesn't have the data
Right.
during the
And we don't have the
last
data.
10 period. Well, we had it from before the 10 years ago.
Right.
But we don't have it now because they
from
just brought
2010 to
all
current date,
into St. Lawrence County.
and the additional 1%
Right.
that the senator.
So we're trying to keep the contract the same, and the county is trying to basically reduce what they give Ogdensburg by $2 million a year, possibly. And their argument is that the population has decreased.
Yes.
And they're trying to convince the towns and the villages to see it their way.
Yes.
But yet, if that argument is used, the towns and the villages have also decreased in population, most of them.
So what are we looking to do? Go to July here?
We just want to, so there's a statement in here in this contract, okay? Where is it?
September 1, July.
I just highlighted it. So when you go to the contract itself, okay?
Number 3.
Second page, there's a big long paragraph under number 3, and it says, a renegotiated agreement or other such agreement is not reached on or before September 1st, 2020. Then the city may notify the county pursuant thereto.
Okay.
So we're trying to get that changed to 2021.
Yes.
The attorney, when he commented on this last week, if you remember, he pointed out the word may, and he said it's arbitrary.
Yes.
He said it means nothing. And so he said, and in his negotiation, I thought with the county attorney that there wasn't a need for that language change because there was nothing grounded here to hold us. We can continue to negotiate.
He has since said that there is a possibility that the county could take us to court for a breach. They would likely lose, but it's also a bigger issue. The city and county are going to have to work in good faith forever. And we got a big issue of distribution of our sales tax. So both parties need to be comfortable. And right now, I don't know about everyone, but I'm not comfortable with this situation. And if you can't, if they do not consider our point, then it's basically right now would be, hey, we're giving you a 1-year extension and you're going to accept it the way it is, even though you have a concern. So going forward, this would be good for both parties to make this small concession to move forward and negotiate in good faith on the sales tax, and then in the future on all the things that we're going to deal together. So I would hope that they'll think about this and understand our position. I think they will. And so I guess do we table it, or do we try to make the June or July 1st date and hope they go with that?
I think it's very significant, too, that the attorney at the comptroller's office also raised the same issue. So it kind of buoys our position that if you're going to extend it for a year, you need to extend the notification date by a year as well. That only makes sense.
And that was not shared with us until you reached out and contacted.
I didn't even know that.
And really, what's the harm of changing the date?
There is no harm.
So what's the underlying reason for pushing against it? Why would they not want it?
The county?
Yeah. What would be the big deal if it's just, if that...
Yeah, I don't understand that. You think if they're going to extend the agreement under the purpose of giving us time to renegotiate, then why wouldn't they change the date? I mean,
That's the whole crux.
I just don't understand why they wouldn't.
Suspect.
So
It's suspect. I think it boils right down to just simple legalese, really. And that's what Scott's email said earlier, Mr. Goldie's email said on the 11th. But mayor's had conversations with the chair, and, if we can pound something out and get an agreement by July, let's see what they got to say. They got nothing to lose here.
So I'm getting the sense that it's the consensus of the council that we're very grateful that they extended this, and we're appreciative of the county legislature for agreeing to do that. It's also the consensus of the council that one date needs to be changed to September 1st of 2020, or at least July 1, 2021. I correct myself.
Yes.
And we would like to convey that, and I guess we have, to the county.
So they're bringing it back to
That's-
discuss next week?
They are.
Or whenever their next meeting-
They're in a
how many
meeting right
meetings they
now.
have?
They're in a meeting on it right now.
So if that's the consensus, is that the consensus of everybody?
Just to table this again?
Yeah.
Well, and that our position on is that they should extend the notification date.
I'd like to see the date changed. If they absolutely refuse, then I think we have no choice but to accept this and accept the attorney's position that word "may" really is just an arbitrary position. That's what I think. So I got no problem tabling this another
Till the next
2
meeting,
weeks or whatever.
to see what the county comes back with.
So,
I think if they aren't willing to negotiate that small change, I think it would be unfortunate, because I think it hurts our relationship. We got a lot of big issues to work together with. So we are going to leave it tabled.
Well, actually, we have the resolution on
You
the
had a
floor.
motion
that's
to
moved.
take it off the
We've gotta-
table, right?
We've got to table it. So Dan,
so I'll make a motion to table it.
I'll second it. Table till the next council meeting.
Counselor, it wasn't taken off the table. So we had a motion and a second to take it off the table. So if you'd like, I could call the vote for that, and you can simply vote it down, and it doesn't come off the table.
Okay.
I don't think we ever had a motion in a second.
Mike Powers motion, Kennedy second.
Yeah, well, we moved the resolution.
Yes, that's correct. It was actually you that moved it. Counselor Reich and Counselor Kennedy seconded it, but we didn't call for a vote. You did, sir.
Okay.
No, I think it was Mike.
It was Powers.
I wrote it down. I wrote Powers down.
I apologize, Doug.
Yeah, I wrote down Powers too. It was Powers and I seconded it.
My
You're
apologies.
getting credit again.
Would city
So
clerk?
would you like me to call the vote to take it off the table?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Reich?
Yeah.
No.
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 Oh, you want?
You're gonna leave it on?
You can go ahead and leave your yes.
Yes, no.
Nullify your whole argument.
Counselor Scamperly?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
No.
Counselor Dillabaugh?
No.
Counselor Fisher?
No.
Counselor Kennedy?
No.
Counselor Powers?
No.
Denied.
Our next item of business will be read by Assistant City Manager Andrea Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Should I just go use your mic, Kathy? Is that?
Or you can borrow mine if you want.
You're certainly welcome to. I tried to move it when Lieutenant Westcott was speaking.
I'm really close to you. This is a resolution authorizing the Assistant City Manager to sign a temporary site access and use agreement with Community Health Center of the North Country. Whereas the City of Ogdensburg has received a temporary site access and use agreement for use of city-owned property located on Isabella Street, Ogdensburg, New York, 13669, designated as tax parcel 48.078-9-1 in the property tax records. And whereas the Community Health Center of the North Country proposes to temporarily install a drive-through COVID-19 testing center to be used in conjunction with the medical office complex located at 234 Ford Street, tax parcel 48.078-9-2, owned by the health center. And whereas the drive-through testing center will be temporarily located on the parking area just north of the medical offices on tax map parcel 48.078-9-1, and will consist of a 13 by 26 foot tent with 6 55-pound foot plates for anchoring as described in the exhibits to the proposed agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ogdensburg Assistant City Manager or her designee is hereby authorized to sign said site access and use agreement authorizing the Community Health Center of the North Country to utilize a portion of city-owned tax map parcel 48.078-9-1 until December 1st, 2020, or upon written notice by the health center of completion of their testing operation, whichever shall occur first.
I'll move it.
I'll second it. Bill?
Yeah. Discussion? Would city clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes?
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Assistant City Manager Andrea Smith.
A resolution to exempt the position of police chief from the hiring freeze. Whereas the Ogdensburg City Council has enacted a hiring freeze on January 6, 2020, and whereas New York State Civil Service Law, Article 4, Title A, Section 58 requires that municipalities maintaining a police department serving a population of 150,000 or less and with positions for more than 4 full-time police officers shall maintain the office of Chief of Police. And whereas the City of Ogdensburg requires a candidate that meets the minimum qualifications for Police Chief Type B, where candidates, quote, must be permanently employed in the competitive class or under Section 55A and must have served on a continuous basis for 24 months as a police sergeant or in a higher ranking position in the City of Ogdensburg Police Department. And whereas the eligible civil service list for the position of Police Chief Type B based on the examination date of March 2nd, 2019, and whereas the position has been vacant since the retirement of former Police Chief Andrew Kennedy on May 30th, 2020. Now therefore be it resolved that the position of Police Chief is hereby exempt from the hiring freeze so that the recruitment for a new police chief can take place in accordance with Ogdensburg City Charter.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I think we need a chief.
Law requires it.
Anyone else? Anything? Would city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly?
No?
Counselor Dilaba?
No.
Counselor Fisher?
No.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
No.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Denied.
Our next item of business will be read by Director of Public Works, Shane Brown.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Is summary statement okay for this?
Yes.
A resolution in support of a 2020 local government efficiency grant application for a North Country Regional Shared Geographic Information System project.
I'll move it.
Can you
Second.
just explain a little bit what the...
Yeah, this is with the Development Authority of North Country, which they've already done another one of these services for our water and sewer infrastructure. This is for, it offers a lot more for everybody in the county that does the city. It offers us a lot. It's going to be like road signs, sidewalks and curbs, municipal and cemeteries, which we don't have. And I think it would be great for us, because then we can real time know when our sidewalks are replaced, how long they've been in, signs, if there's a defunct sign, you know, if there's a problem sign that someone keeps knocking down or something, we'll be able to keep track of it. And so the cost of it is minimal.
So our water and sewer is already done by this GIS system.
Yes, it's on the development website. I use it almost daily.
I was just wondering, you know, how useful is it?
It's great, actually.
Okay. I remember when we did this project a long time ago. Okay.
I'd like to say you and your department are doing wonderful for the city. Everything looks great, and appreciate that effort you put forth. Any further discussion? Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business is a resolution providing for public notice and public hearing with regard to an amendment to the Ogdensburg Municipal Code, Chapter 189, entitled Streets and Sidewalks, Would a member of council like to introduce it?
I can do that. Be it resolved that the proposed ordinance 2020 amendment to the Ogdensburg Municipal Code of the City of Ogdensburg be, and it hereby is introduced before the City Council of the City of Ogdensburg, New York, and be it further resolved that the City Council hold a public hearing on said proposed ordinance at the City Council chambers at 7 p.m. on Monday, July 13th, 2020. Be it further resolved that the city clerk publish or cause to be published a public notice in the official newspaper of the City of Ogdensburg of said hearing at least 7 days prior thereto. I so move.
I'll second.
Discussion? Anyone? Would city clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business is a resolution providing for public notice and public hearing with regard to an amendment to the Ogdensburg Municipal Code, Chapter 64, entitled Alcoholic Beverages. Would a member of council like to introduce it?
I'll read it. Be it resolved that proposed ordinance of the year 2020 entitled Amendment to the Ogdensburg Municipal Code of the City of Ogdensburg be and hereby is introduced before the City Council of the City of Ogdensburg, New York, and be further resolved that the City Council hold a public hearing on said proposed ordinance of the City Council chambers at 7 p.m. on Monday, July 13th, 2020. And be it further resolved that the city clerk publish or cause to be published a public notice in the official newspaper of the City of Ogdensburg of said public hearing at least 7 days prior.
Say I so move. Say I so move.
Oh, I so move.
Second it.
Discussion? Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business is a resolution to temporarily permit the consumption of alcoholic beverages in the outside dining areas on city properties in front of city restaurants. Would a member of council like to introduce it?
So moved. Yes.
You just read the
Yes.
summary statement.
Resolution to temporarily permit the consumption of alcoholic beverages in outside dining areas on city property in front of city restaurants. So moved.
There you go, second it.
So why the need for the public hearing of the resolution we just passed?
This is the temporary.
Until after the public hearing?
Yeah, it'll take a few weeks anyway, so, yeah.
They can start now.
Summer short.
Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
I did.
Any further discussion?
No?
Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business is a resolution requesting that St. Lawrence County Human Resources and Civil Service Administration hold an open competitive exam for the position of fire chief in the city of Ogdensburg, and the authorizing temporary out of pay in the fire department. Would a member of council like to introduce it?
I'll do that. Resolution requesting that the St. Lawrence County Human Resources and Civil Service Administration hold an open competitive exam for the position of fire chief in the city of Ogdensburg, and authorizing temporary out-of-title pay in the fire department. Whereas there is presently a vacancy in the position of fire chief in the Ogdensburg Fire Department, and whereas there is not presently an active civil service list of qualified candidates to fill this position, now therefore be it resolved that the Ogdensburg City Council hereby requests that the St. Lawrence County Human Resources and Civil Service Administration hold an open competitive exam for the position of fire chief in the Ogdensburg Fire Department. And be it further resolved that the Ogdensburg City Council hereby temporarily authorizes out-of-title pay for any assistant chief who assumes the regular duties, daily duties of fire chief for a maximum of 40 hours per week, provided, however, that out-of-title pay may be authorized and approved for more than 40 hours in 1 week in the event of emergency that requires additional hours. I so move.
Second it.
Is there any discussion?
Well, I think it's costing us more money not to be doing this. And as Jason Bouchard said, they need a fire chief for the well-being and safety of the city of Ogdensburg. So I'm going to support this.
Would,
We need to give some sort of notice to the St. Lawrence County Civil Service. Can you just do that automatically, or you don't need us to amend this, right? Just send them a letter or something?
I did look at the resolution for that language, but I did have an opportunity to speak today directly with Civil Service. They have requested this exam be given. They made that request to New York State in April of 2020. New York State has not set the exam date. The exam was last given by New York State in December of 19, so it will probably again be December of 20. But they have already made the request.
Yeah, we were aware of that. We just wanted to be officially on record and point out that we do want to hire a fire chief, and, you know, so we wanted to make the official request. Probably should have done it a while ago. And can you convey that without us amending the resolution? I mean,
That's fine. I told them they're aware of this resolution. That's why they called me this morning. I told them I was quite confident it would pass, and I would be instructed to send a copy to them, but that I acknowledge that they have already called for the exam. So no problem. I'm happy to send a certified copy to the county.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Would City Clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Reed?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business is a resolution to establish working rules between the City Council and the City Attorney. Would a member of council like to introduce it?
I will, Mike. A resolution to establish working rules between the City Council and the City Attorney. Whereas the City Council desires to establish a policy for the proper working relationship between the Council and the City Attorney, and whereas the City Council wishes to be transparent in regard to legal opinions received from the City Attorney in regard to official city business and city policy, but also recognizes the sensitive nature of some of the communications between Council and the City Attorney. Now therefore, be it resolved that the following working rules are hereby established to govern communications between the Council and the City Attorney. Should a councilor require legal advice from the City Attorney in regard to city business, the councilor may request such opinion or advice as long as the member of the council has a consensus from at least 3 other members. Consensus can be achieved by any reasonable means. If the inquiry results in legal opinion, it shall be shared with the balance of the council as soon as it is reasonably possible, provided, however, that such legal opinion shall only be shared in executive session under Section 108 of the Public Officers Law. When such a legal opinion is shared with the full council in executive session, the majority of council shall decide to what extent, if any, to waive the attorney-client privilege and make such opinion public. I so move.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
So if one counselor, according to this resolution, asks for a legal opinion, the attorney is not going to give it unless 3 more counselors also ask for it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Unless there's a consensus.
What's changed?
He asked for direction.
He gave his direction.
Well, he's
Recommendation.
yeah. And
This was not his recommendation.
No.
I don't feel this is transparent at all.
well, there was
And
two.
I think, I don't understand why everything has to be in executive session. Is that what this is saying? Because that was another question. Because quite often, we've asked the attorney questions. Sometimes it's executive session material, sometimes it's open session. But this looks like everything is going to be answered in executive session. And my other concern is that, does this violate open meetings law? Because now you have to have 4 counselors basically having a meeting discussing a legal opinion.
No.
So,
It doesn't. And under the section 108.3 of the Public Officers Law, any matter made confidential by any federal or state law, which attorney-client privilege is, and that's what it is. Every one of his things that come back say right on there, this is attorney-client privilege. So I didn't write the exception to the Public Officers Law, but it exists.
I just think
It's just an exemption under section 108, number 3. It's just an exemption, meaning that if the subject line suggests that it's confidential, then it's confidential.
No, it allows you to get
Matters
into...
come out of executive session where action is taken.
No, it allows you to get into executive session.
That's your interpretation. That's not how I read section 108 at all. Mr. Goldman made it very clear that we as a council are the client. And I, being one of 7, am a client, and I'm entitled to information through open government and transparency. Now, if this is how you choose to roll, that's fine. You can expect problems down the road.
Duly noted.
I think it's very open, I think it's very transparent, and I think...
Is it really? Do we really want to get into that? Is it really that open?
You expressed your opinion, I expressed mine.
Fair.
All right, you know what? I'll save it. I'll save it.
We worked out what I think is, a good procedure. Any 4 can get an opinion.
What's changed? That's what I asked. Again, what's
Please,
changed? I apologize.
And everything will be shared with everybody with a check that, it goes into executive session. If we want to share, if it's something important, we share it publicly. We can vote publicly and share it. If you want to do that, that's fine. But I think it's a good resolution.
If I can.
Oh, yes.
I'm just going to cite a host of personal appearances during online presentations and city council meetings where constituents have voiced their concerns consistently, not just one person. And when we look to go and move that information, and I can't get 3 yet, 2 weeks ago in this very chamber, you all acknowledged that you got information based off 3 counselors and then ultimately a 4th chimed in. I am on the record, and you have all seen it, asking for information and have not got it. And I had 3 counselors asking for it. What's changed? Nothing. So the transparency level doesn't exist. If this is how you want to roll, have at it.
Any further discussion?
yeah, I just don't see any transparency whatsoever. I'm certainly not going to vote for this and support
Does this include personal emails as well? Done through city business?
Whatever it says in there.
City business is city business. Is personal emails relevant here? Legal opinion? I'm asking a question. And it's directly related to the subject matter. Information being received as a council as a whole. It's a legal opinion.
Legal opinion.
Okay.
So the city
You can
attorney
wait your
is in agreement that this is not the way to roll here. That the way to roll is if somebody asks a question, he answers it to all of us, period. And that's what he stated at the last meeting. So I'm voting against this. I think even the city attorney knows this is wrong, and obviously he does, and he's probably going to get in trouble. I don't know. I don't know why you would want to do this.
I vote no on it, just for the simple fact that
Excuse me.
if we cannot share information, we're never going to be able to work together. And I'm getting real sick of it. It's like high school kids trying to figure out who wants to be the popular kid at the lunch table. Like, there's no working together, and that's the problem. Working together is going to come from the sharing of information and the ability to trust one another. If I can't trust that I can call Steve on the phone and ask him something that I'm going to get the truth on what was told, I can't work with Steve. Same thing goes with John, same thing goes with Dan. Like, there's no trust, and this to me seems like you're trying to lock out unless it's your idea and you want to present it. I prefer the legal opinion that we got from our attorney that said it should go out to all of us, and that's where I stand, so I will vote no.
Your Honor, you know, you can vote, we all get one vote, but we sat here 2 weeks ago. The man gave his opinion. He asked for direction. You've had 2 weeks to come up with some type of resolution, some type of idea of how it should be done, how we should do it. The man sat there and asked, and we sit here tonight, and this is put out because it took the time to do it, but yet, no, don't like it. Where's yours?
We don't
more
need
than
to
happy to
have
make
one.
a
We have an
couple amendments to
operation
this
here.
one.
It was always one way.
This is the change.
It was,
Well, please, one
this
at
is
a
open
time.
government. What do you mean? We don't need a resolution to be able to move the city forward as an entity.
The man,
That's absurd.
the man requested direction.
And you brought an idea, and I
And
commend
he
you for
gave his opinion. As in an operational standpoint, he sat right there and said, I just assume share information with a whole. I'll pull the minutes up. I'll cite the minutes if we have to put the minutes into the record again. I don't know why we'd have to do that because it's in the
The
minutes.
city charter says the attorney, and he was interpreting it, right? Exactly, Mike.
That's exactly what he was going off, and that's what we should be operating off. If you want to change the charter, convene the commission, put your issues forward, and govern by fiat. Do whatever you want.
If I may, this is not a
Like I
charter
said,
change.
what's changed? I didn't say it was a charter change. I'm suggesting that if that's the avenue you want to go, those are the necessary steps you need to take to do it legally. Period.
If I may, we're not changing the charter. This is not a charter change. This was a request by the lawyer for guidance, and we've given it to him in this resolution, and we'll vote on it, see if it passed. And all information will be given to everyone. That was the object of it, and it will be given to everyone. And if anyone else would like to speak, I'll stop now.
So I think it's just a matter of either you're going to vote for secrecy, which is what this is, or vote for transparency. I'm going to vote no on secrecy. So.
I would strongly disagree with Mr. Scamparelli's comments. It's very transparent. You can't get more transparent than putting it in a resolution with agreeing to share it with everybody, with protecting that information, since it is, you know, very confidential information. Like, what, you know, some of the things that we've talked, I can't even mention it.
Yes.
And so that's why that's in there, but you're all part of it. You can all go into executive session together, all 7 of us, so you'll have all the information. And if you want to make it public, you just vote on it to make it public.
Yes.
So I disagree.
I don't even think it follows under the rules of executive session.
It does.
No, that's your opinion.
what's everybody's opinion instead of having 4 if we have 3? So that way I feel as if I am locked out from contacting
Still being
the city
shared with
attorney.
all. What's the
To
problem?
still share it with all, but
Whether
instead
it's 1 or 3 or
changing
2
it-
or 5 or 6 or whatever.
changing it from 4 to 3,
One. That's,
so that way we all have the same opportunity. What about that? Is anybody against that? Why do we have to necessarily have 4? Why can't it be 3 so we all
Because it's the same with everything else that we vote on.
Right, but if we're creating, but if we
rules
are creating the working rules, why can't we make up the rules? So we're creating the rule, so why can't we create the rule that says one counselor and 2 additional counselors? I don't see why it has to be the 4th. So that way we can all have that opportunity, because I have asked many times questions and could not get a 4th. And I feel like that blocks me out from being able to get answers for people, things that people ask me. And I feel like I'm failing to do my job because I can't get those answers. And we have it in writing multiple times where I've asked at a council meeting and Ben had crickets. I've asked an email for a 4th and had nobody. Like, I just think that, can we change it from needing a majority to at least 3? And change the wording to at least 3 counselors?
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why do you feel uncomfortable with calling Bill or I or John or Steve? You've never called one of us to ask for the 4th.
It's always been put in an email. I prefer to always put things in writing in an email, and that's the way, since I've been a counselor, I've always conducted businesses in writing. I've always done everything that way, so my preference is I put it in writing. We all check our email, we all respond to emails, so that's why I put it in writing.
If I may, sometimes to articulate what we're working on or a plan or an objective, a conversation is just better, because then it leads to, you say I have, like, there's some things that could be improved with code right now. You say, I have a plan for some ideas, I'm working with code, I'd like to take these to the lawyer. And it's like, okay, and then maybe I say, well, what is the plan? And we talk about it, and I love it. Love that. That's a great effort, and it goes forward. That is how we've approached the work of the sales tax. And there's some other things we're working on that just really can't just be openly.
But my issue doesn't lie in something like that. My issue lies when we are on separate ends of an argument. You are firmly, when talking about when we did the cuts, you were firmly at one end of that, and I'm still firmly at the other end of that. During that meeting, I asked for an opinion, and I was very verbal about what I would like to see and to get an opinion from the attorney. And you're telling me that if I would verbally call you, I verbally asked in a meeting, and I still couldn't get it. So that's all I'm saying is, like, I think if we can change the wording to at the request of at least 3 counselors, that doesn't lock anyone out.
If I may, to say I want to use the attorney because I'm opposed to the majority?
No, I just wanted to seek opinion on if what was being done was legal or if we could do it. But you guys had already talked to the attorney, and that's why the changes were probably made to the layoffs in the fire department, because you knew we couldn't. So that's what I'm saying. You contacted the attorney on those issues. And that's what I'm saying. I just wanted to be able to ask questions, but at the time, didn't know you had spoken to him, and I wasn't shared that information. So that's where the problem lies. So all I'm saying is, I think it's great that Steve wrote this. So if it's up for negotiation, I would just like to amend it to say at least 3. And that way, every person sitting here on this council has the opportunity, whether, I don't agree. Before this council, I was not always on the same. I voted against Dan. I voted against Mike multiple times. You can go back and check the record. We've disagreed quite a few times on things. So it's not that I'm locked in. It's the fact that I just think of at least 3 counselors. You could be my 3rd counselor. They don't always agree with me. I'm just saying, I think at least 3 makes it so we can actively work for the people that voted us into office. And that's my suggestion. If we're, like Steve said, nobody offered a suggestion, that's mine.
If I may, my suggestion would be, let's start talking more. Let's just call each other, ask each other to share the information personally. I've called you and I've called Dan.
Right, but back to my issue on, it's impossible to work with people when you don't trust them. So that's all I'm saying is that if we could make it at least 3, I think we could prove to maybe have a better working relationship with everyone involved. And that's all I'm saying.
So I will second Nicole's amendment to make it, in now therefore be it resolved, the second paragraph, as long as a member of council has a consensus from at least 2 other members, consensus can be achieved by any reasonable means. So,
Here we are talking about working together and making phone calls and doing this, that, and the other thing. And, ultimately, that's what got us here. When we started to request this information, what we got back were responses were, well, it's 4-3 now, live with it.
I disagree.
Well, it's on record, Mike. It's public record. It's recorded. It was said right here in this chamber. I'm not going to repeat who said it, but that's irrelevant. But that's the reason why we're concerned about it. And it's not. I think I'm not going to sit here and say that anybody has any foul intention for the city. I know that not to be true. But going forward, all we've asked for was information, and we've had the door shut on us. I had the city attorney respond to me telling me such. It's in your emails that I shared with everybody to obtain and share information and fact-finding as we go forward. That's how I've always operated. It's how Dan's always operated. I've only served with Nicole a brief period here, but that seems to be the way she's operated. And that's all we're trying to achieve here. This isn't rocket science, and it doesn't need a resolution. It just needs to be a common goal of all 7 of us to move the city forward, collectively. And fact-finding and being informed as a legislator is serving your constituency. That's what government's all about. It's really that simple. We don't need a resolution to do this to go forward. It's common sense.
May I say, as far as fact-finding, there's been 4 people who have been out fact-finding. There's been
Mike,
4 people
don't sit here and
working.
speak for other people. You can speak for the other 3 all you want. Don't sit, no, he's speaking on my behalf. He's telling me that I'm not doing my due diligence when I've done plenty.
You've spoken. Now be respectful and wait your turn. There's been 4 people who have been working fact-finding.
I tried to fact find, but I couldn't get any answers from the lawyer.
On what specifically? Share with us.
$20,000 of...
Point of order here, point of order. We're not here to debate personal appearances or anything of that nature. This is how a meeting's to be conducted.
Call a vote. I call for a vote. Call for a vote in Dan's, and then call a vote for the other.
Okay. We're voting on amendment to the resolution.
Yep.
Would the city clerk please call the roll?
This is the motion to amend.
Correct.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
No.
Counselor Dilaba?
No.
Counselor Fisher?
No.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
No.
Denied.
Now, would the city clerk please call the roll on the
We're
resolution?
gonna vote on the resolution?
Yes.
What are we doing now?
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
No.
Counselor Powers?
No.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
No.
Approved.
Our next item of business is a resolution to provide for public notice and public hearing with regard to a local law to amend the city charter in regard to a residency requirement for the positions of chief of police and fire chief. Would a member of council like to introduce that?
I can do that. Be it resolved that a public hearing be held by the Ogdensburg City Council on the proposed changes to the city charter, said public hearing to be held on July 13th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the City Council Chambers, City Hall, and be it further resolved that the city clerk give notice of such public hearing by publication in the official newspaper at least 7 days before the hearing date, setting forth the time and place and describing the proposed local law in summary form. I so move.
Second.
Discussion?
So I'm looking at this, and it basically says that the police chief and the fire chief not be a resident of the city. And I think this is already state law, isn't it? Because we've had discussion on hiring people and having to make them residents of the city, but I think if you're a member of the police or fire, you do not have to be a resident. You have to live in the county, but not the city, is state law. And we've been over this about 100 times, I think.
The department head, chief?
I just think police or fire, I don't think it has anything to do with the department head. Who brought this forward? Why? Why? What's the issue?
Because we want to make sure that two important city employees, one the chief of police, the other fire chief, that they reside in the city, especially given the emergency nature of their service. The same thing is in the charter for the city manager. It's written the exact same way.
But this says that the chief of police need not be a resident.
But you got to finish reading it, because it says at the time while you're serving, you do. But the point is, we will recruit from outside the city. That's what that means. But if we pick you, you need to reside in the city.
Must reside in the city. So I think there's an issue with state law here.
There's not an issue with state law, and the Supreme Court has upheld it. Even other communities like Syracuse do it for their entire departments. So I think it's a good change.
I got no problem with it, but I just think it's against the law. And can we get a check on that from somebody?
Yeah, the city attorney is looking into that. We have provided him with, and I believe I did also provide to council, New York State Public Officers Law, Article 2, that pertains to the police chief as well as the fire chief. And so we have, as I think it was you, Councilor Scamperly, noted that the city has tried to have a residency requirement for these positions in the past and has been determined that that is not lawful. So the attorney is looking into the information that we have provided to him as well as New York State law.
Okay. And I think it was the city of Syracuse that had the lawsuit. I'm quite certain. Because, like I said, we've been over this over and over and over again. I'd like to table this till we hear back from the attorney.
I'll second that.
So, because
Any further discussion?
I don't want to vote yes or no and have it be against the law. So.
Oh, it is, isn't it? No, let's table it then. No?
Yeah.
No,
I would.
I'd like to call for the public hearing.
Huh?
I'd like to call for the public hearing, and in the meantime, Andrea's talked to the attorney, and we'll have that information.
Oh, you're just calling for a public hearing then?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to think that the person that would be one of those department heads would like to live in our city, be closer to the community. So I'm good with voting for it.
I just want to check the law, that's all.
So Dan is saying they don't need to be residents when we appoint them.
No, I know.
Then they got to move here after their appointment.
Right. Well, I'm quite certain there's already a lawsuit, and it happened with the city of Syracuse and it set precedents. And this is because we've often in the past tried to make every city employee a resident of the city.
You can't do it.
And we can't do it, we could do it to some employees, but we couldn't do it because you can't do it to fire and police. And if we couldn't do it to fire and police, we didn't think it was fair to do it to the rest of the city. And so that's why it never passed. Probably every change of council I've sat on has brought this up, and every time the attorney says you can't do it, it's against the law. And so...
I think you're using different language. There isn't a law that prohibits it. You know, there may be like case law or something different, case law, but we already do it for the manager.
So why don't we table this and ask the attorney, if we can get 4 of us to agree, to actually draw up a resolution that he thinks is legal, because I don't think this is legit.
I think it is legal, and I think Andrea's getting a legal opinion. I think we should call for the public hearing, and by that time, we will have that opinion.
How quickly can we cancel a public hearing? We could probably can't void it the night of the hearing, correct? If we got a decision back from the city attorney that wasn't favorable for this resolution.
Kathy, I would have to ask you to speak about canceling the public hearing, but ultimately, if you have a public hearing, you don't have a requirement to go forward with the resolution. So if it's determined by the attorney that you cannot require a residency requirement for either of those positions, then you can go forward with holding the public hearing. You can get public comment, but you wouldn't be able to pass that resolution if in fact the attorney came back and said it was not lawful. So I have talked to the attorney who had not been presented with this resolution before the council received the agenda on Thursday. That's the same time he saw this particular resolution, and he did ask for time to review it to determine whether or not it was legal, so that he can provide you with an opinion on that. I have no issue with calling for a public hearing. There's no reason not to move forward with that. The attorney will have an opinion to you before the public hearing.
Okay. All right. I'll take my table off the floor then.
So you withdraw?
I'll withdraw that, yes.
Would city clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reese?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Director of Public Works, Shane Brown.
This is a resolution to authorize the expenditure of funds to open the municipal pool.
Perfect.
Good for me.
So I should have read the whole thing, but
No, you're
it is for
That's all right.
5 days a week, 6 hours a day. Just want to make sure everybody understands that. This is a bare bones budget. Like, if anything goes wrong, it could be trouble. We made it so we could just get through the summer. There's no like morning programs or activities that used to be. That is the number that's on there.
We're gonna open like noon to 6.
That's what you're.
So we need to move this so we can have a discussion. So I'll move it.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
Second.
Okay, there you go. No.
So like noon to 6, you think?
Yes, and then be closed for 2 days. Usually it used to be closed on Mondays. It'd be nice if we could be closed 2 consecutive days, you know,
Right.
for the timing of people.
Unless it's 90 degrees.
Well, that's up to you guys, how much you want to put in the budget.
Excuse me, I like 7 days. It's short, summer's short.
It's never been open 7 days. This is all contingent on the Department of Health too, getting applications, and, you know, approving the pool plan and stuff like that.
Is there anyone certified to run the pool that in the city? Are you certified to?
We have 2 certified pool operators that came over from the recreation.
Okay.
From the what?
From recreation that came over with us that are still there. I think that basically just, you know, they can take care of the chemicals and stuff like that. You still have to find the qualifications of head lifeguards and regular lifeguards. And there's like, I do believe it calls for at least 2 18-year-olds to be on duty at all times, plus 1 head lifeguard. And we are required to have 1 head lifeguard and 4 other lifeguards for the size of the pool. So we 5 on at all times. Other things that come into play is how much we have to clean the handrails and other surfaces that are touched.
That's my concern with some of the guidelines, you know, for COVID-19. I mean, do you have enough money in this to operate even for those amount of days that you're suggesting? You know, you're gonna have to increase staff down there. You're gonna have to increase lifeguards. You got to keep kids within groups of 8 to 10. It's a pretty strenuous activity. I spoke with Mr. Lucky at the Boys and Girls Club, and he's preparing to open on the 6th. And there's a lot of work that needs to go into this, and I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong, man. I want that pool open. You know, I want our Dabisky say, I want the recreation, I want the whole thing, right? But at any rate, with all that being said, I'm curious to know whether or not you'll be able to operate and do this, let alone stay on top of the maintenance and the cleaning and everything else with it. I'm all for giving you more.
It's a tight budget. I mean, I'll be honest, we didn't factor in the cleaning part of it. I didn't realize it at the point when I did it. The guidelines came out afterwards when we wrote this. And that's not really making any wiggle room for breakdowns.
It's pretty extensive. I'm sure you've seen it since this came out. The interim guidance for pools and recreation and aquatic.
We'll take a walk around and look at the condition it's in.
Yeah.
Rough shape?
Yeah, in my eyes it is.
Yeah, I saw you say that they were pumping it out today.
And I don't think it's had an upgrade. It's old.
If it doesn't,
No, I wouldn't say bulldoze. It's
Build a
not,
beach?
that's nowhere near that condition, but it will need money put into it over the next few
No, I'm
years.
saying bulldoze and build a beach.
We can get through this year and
It is.
look to next year's budget to put some money in
Yeah,
repairs?
I would recommend maybe we can have someone come in the fall when we drain it or come in
Yes.
the fall to take a look at it, maybe give us an estimate on what needs to be done.
Going forward, do you see any potential operational issues opening it right now?
Not as of yet, but we haven't started it
Right,
yet either.
right.
I mean, there's some showers that need to be fixed and stuff like that.
Do you
going forward.
anticipate any issues from the Department of Health?
Actually, the woman that I've been speaking to is very, she's going out of her way to help me out. But we gotta get our applications once after, if it's approved tonight, over to civil service, they gotta approve it, then we gotta send it to the Department of Health so they can approve to make sure everything's up to date.
Will there be a capacity of how many can be in there as compared to what,
I'm not sure, you see how much capacity the 50% of it can be in there? It's kind of,
The actual guidelines that came out with, like Shane said, after we did the resolution, so he and I are still kind of going through all the guidelines for municipal pools. I think when we were putting together the resolution, we were keeping in mind the council's directives from May 6th, where there was a need to be proactive and to anticipate shortages in revenue, which, as you all know, we are experiencing shortages in sales tax revenue. We anticipate continued shortages in June and July. We hope that that will be it and that things will start to return to some sense of normalcy based on the reopening. And overall, the state has good numbers in terms of the number of COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations. So we're hoping that we'll be on the more conservative end of revenue shortfall. But this budget keeps in mind a couple of things. It keeps in mind that we did receive feedback from council that they do want to be conservative with expenditures, and that the Department of Public Works has also absorbed duties that they are not traditionally accustomed to doing. So we're trying to, this is the first time for Public Works to operate the pool. So we feel like the budget that was proposed 6 days a week, 5 days a week, 6 hours a day is achievable with the staffing that we have in the department and the applications and the responses that we've received from lifeguards. As well as it still does allow us to provide some cost-saving measures to the city.
I talked to Penny Sherrill today, and she said that she would be interested in helping. She ran the pool before and programs. I think we should consider Penny and having her bring other people on paying them with a stipend. I think this should be increased to $55,000. I think we've all, especially our children, have been through a lot. No school. I think we should increase this and look for businesses and individual citizens who would consider contributing. Pepsi Cola is, I think going to contribute again, and I think if we move it up to $55,000, I think we could probably get $10,000 from donations to put our rec programs and like I say, I mentioned Penny is a good individual for this. And hopefully the 55,000, we will donation to the city to help with this. We'll get maybe 10,000 back of it. But we need to put on a good program for our children, and lift the spirits of the city, the quality of life. That would be my recommendation on this, to increase it.
Are you looking to amend?
I am looking to amend.
Why don't we do both, pass it like it is, and start a campaign to raise the extra money?
Well, I would like to raise it, and then I bring the donations in that will hopefully offset.
I'll second
much of
his
it.
amendment to 55,000.
I think we could save $3,500 a month by hiring an acting fire chief. And that money could be used towards this pool.
Please, let's stay on point.
Oh, yeah, I'm just saying.
I think we could save that money by the fire department saying, let's do this for our children, and doing it for nothing. Anyways, we're back on this motion.
Yes.
And more
We have a
discussion?
second to the amendment.
Any further discussion?
Could you explain the budget line that it's coming from? Like what the consequence of this is? Like, do we, I'm not against it, I just want to make sure I understand fully where it's coming from. Because the cuts were drastic, so I just want to make sure I understand completely if residual ramifications of it, that's all.
The entire pool budget was cut as a result of the passing of the May 6th budget, which is $62,000 and change, $62,207, I think. That entire budget was cut with the passing of that resolution. So a resolution in some way, shape, or form, similar to the one presented this evening, is needed to essentially restore funding to allow the pool to open. I don't know if that answers your question, or if you want something more detailed from the comptroller.
So your 30,000 estimate is based on the savings, pool had opened earlier, and so that's how you calculated it?
We based it on a decrease in the number of overall lifeguards and a loss of 1 day per week.
What's it done? Yeah, the hours are shortened up, there's no morning programs, there's no night swim for adults,
It's,
stuff like that.
it's only public swimming, so there's no swim lessons, there's no adult swim. It would be public swim only.
Part of the original appropriation for the pool opening in
May 1st, say May 1st or whatever.
I think it usually opens maybe last week or over.
They usually open when school closed.
Yep.
Yeah, we're about a week behind.
They would open the very last week of school. They had, I believe they had classes come in for school, kind of parties, end of the year, things of that nature, but it opened to the public essentially this week. So we are about a week to 2 weeks behind where it would have opened ordinarily.
Anybody want to go higher?
I'm good with restoring the entire budget.
I know the staff came and said that's what they need, so.
I would like to see, it restored for the kids to have, back to normally 6 days a week. I'm certain our citizens and businesses will help us with some of this, and I'd like to go with 55,000. And we've made a lot of cuts, and
You got a second on it, vote on
Does
it.
that cover the pool, or does it cover the additional programs you're talking about?
There are no additional programs. It's
We can't have additional
public, it's
programs.
public service, it's
With
open
this
to the
budget, we
public, no
haven't-
swim lessons, no night swim.
Oh, right.
No, but if this 35,000 that's in here is strictly for the pool, is what he's getting at. And you
We're
were
not changing,
talking
he's not
about
amending, he's not amending anything else in the resolution other than the bottom line.
I
Well, mean, we didn't suggest
we think
programs.
55,000 could get us like a couple counselors, like, just a little bit, like,
You're gonna need them if you read the regulations. You're gonna need, you can't have groups of 8 to 10 kids without actually having somebody fixed on it. And once, we're one group, let's say we're one group, and John runs off and goes and runs off with another group. Before you know it, now we got a problem. Now you've got this individual that's got to run over and address that. So you're taking an actual resource instead of just a plain lifeguard. So, I mean, the requirements call for quite a bit because of COVID, right? And I think the additional funding will help with that.
And then, okay, call the question. We ready to
Call the
vote?
amendment?
Vote on amendment to raise it to 55,000?
So this is a vote to amend.
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reish?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you, everyone.
Mayor?
Now we move the resolution.
We have to vote as
Oh, as amended now.
Counselor Kennedy?
As amended?
As amended.
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reish?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Approved.
Lost my spot.
Old business.
This brings us to old business. Does anyone have any old business to discuss?
So, under old business, the police chief gave quite a presentation tonight on,
Acting police chief.
our acting police chief on,
Actually, he's not doing that.
Lieutenant Westcott gave quite a presentation tonight on the effects of the budget changes. And I seriously think we need to address the issue. And if we can't he's down 10 police officers. That's 35 or 36% of the police force. And so I seriously think we need to address the issue, and I think we need to at least put 2 police officers back on, okay? And I'd like to have a discussion on this. I mean, I don't want to lose the airport. I like the fact that the drug situation, the Ogdensburg Police Department has been doing an impeccable job trying to clean up the city with that situation. Our SRO being a teacher, I see the incredible importance of having an SRO in the school system with children. And I think at the next meeting, I'd like to see a resolution hiring 2 more police officers to where we're at, especially if we got 2 coming out of the academy that are going to be ready to rock and roll, that we've paid for one of them. Rather than waste it, I'd like to, I take your words to heart, Bill, about the budget and everything, and, but I seriously think that the city needs to do something here, and we're way too short, and I think that we need to put 2 guys
So
back.
there's 28, and so there's only 18 working?
There's 18 working right
Yeah.
now, and they're supposed to have 28.
And it's just gonna create a forced overtime situation, or we say goodbye to the airport, things like that, so. What do you guys think?
Well, yeah, he brought up a lot of other good points too. You have the bail reform that passed this year. We just had an individual charged, allegedly charged with rape. He was released, and then he turned around and he violated. I mean, these are the things that bog law enforcement down, and our fire department as well. When you look at the cuts that are made there, when you look at the pandemic and the meth situation that we have, and the drugs in the city of Ogdensburg, and some of the crime in the city of Ogdensburg, it can't be taken lightly, and I'm not suggesting that it was, but it can't be taken lightly, and we have to put the public safety at hand here. And I'm familiar with staffing levels just due to my occupation, and it hurts, and that's why I suggested I worry about burnout, And you're gonna, you know, you got the summer coming, the heat's here, you know, we're dealing with it sitting here, you know, and those have factors into the daily grinds, and I'm in full support of providing public safety and not making any cuts there. I know that cuts need to be made in other areas, and we can find them, but public safety can't be compromised.
Any other old business? Okay, that brings us to new business. Any new business?
I know we're looking at cost-saving measures, and I hate to even bring this up, but we always do the summer cleanup for Seaway Festival. I would just like to see what the cost savings is. Not saying I want to get rid of it, but what is the cost savings of not doing it? I just want to know the number. Shane?
I don't have an exact number, but it's about probably 2 weeks, but at least two guys per day. I mean, you're looking at the city right now, so did we want to go after? There's a lot of brown. There's a lot. I would almost honestly, I do understand the cost savings will be great, but I think we need to take it up.
Okay. No, that's all I'm asking. I've advocated for the brush pickup before. I'm not saying I want to get rid. I was just wondering what the actual cost. Like if we're looking at nickels, dimes, and pennies, just low hanging. Yeah, I'm just looking at anything that could be low hanging fruit. I know I need the brush pickup at my house, but I'm just saying. I just wondering what the actual dollar amount was.
I think having the city look good adds to the quality of life. I think it's a good value, and I think you guys have done great. I'm thinking that for new business, if we should do a stipend for Penny or someone in that position, that maybe we could also look for volunteers that would be interested in being at the Dubisky Center during part of a day, so that that building could be open. Maybe, you know, Pride and Beautification Garden Club. There's other people that sew, and they might enjoy the building, and that would allow us to have it open more to the public. So that's one thing that I've been thinking is volunteers, and maybe, like I said before, some people with donations. Maybe all the counselors want to give up their pay to the end of the year for all the kids and brush cleanup and everything. And just a little something, maybe to think about everyone. Make a little difference here. But that's my new business. I'm good with that. Anyone else?
Just one, I don't know
Yes.
if this is more of an item for discussion, but can we, prior to the next council meeting, for the public to be able to hear, and I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but to maybe give it the new system a trial run, maybe I'd be willing to volunteer myself and operate from home to check the quality of sound, to make sure that we've got adequate audio, and I'm happy to assist in any way to make sure that the many people that want to participate and are heard, and our presentations are heard.
Can we live stream from our
Doing a live stream.
No, I mean from like, if I set up my phone at the back of that room and I put it on Facebook Live and I put my phone up there, they would have better audio and visual than, say, what they're getting now.
Counselor, that wouldn't be necessary. The camera that's mounted in the back of the room has the capabilities of live streaming. It's been used as a recorded device, which is originally what it was placed there for.
Right.
But we can switch that over to offer live stream. Well, what that would allow is for the people to view and hear the meeting, but they would not be permitted to participate.
And that's the other issue we're faced with.
But we can certainly live stream from that camera, record with the webinar.
So people could raise their hand. So you'd have to be on two. You'd almost have to interchangeably use two devices or two screens.
Exactly. So you would have to have, for instance, an iPad or a computer to participate, and a separate device, cell phone or whatever, to watch it the live stream, or vice versa. But it is certainly an option, and we certainly can explore that. It in addition to trying to further advance the audio and the.
Thank you.
Did you vote at the second meeting in July? Wasn't that discussed at one point?
Yes.
Did we ever vote on that?
There was
I think we
no
decided on
specific date.
June, didn't we?
I think we were more so looking for, we were gonna do a doodle poll or something based on what dates we were all available. Cause I know like the vacations planned or something, I can't remember.
So our next meeting date is when?
July 13th is the next regularly scheduled council meeting date, and traditionally the council meets once in July and once in August. I had suggested to the mayor, as he brought up, that in lieu of having special meetings, that we could look at having 2 meetings in July or 2 meetings in August if there was enough material that needed to be addressed. And the plan was, there are some vacations that people have scheduled, both from council as well as staff. But we thought we would bring, based on the agenda for the 13th, we would let you know if we thought there was a need, unless council wants to schedule something. We thought we would do it based on need.
I would like to have 3-4 meetings, because this is great weight loss here. The pounds are going right off me with the heat, so I can use the council meetings to lose weight. I'm just kidding. I think 2 is necessary with all the work we have to do.
Do you see the need? I mean, do you want to do 2 in August? We want to do 1 in July? We want to do 2 in July? I mean, what do we want to do here?
2 and 2?
I think the question is ultimately, what does council want to do?
I'm fine with this, the 13th.
Yeah, me too.
I was just wondering
Yeah, if we see a need for something that's pressing that we have to get past, then we will. But other than that, I think.
Are you sure? I'm gonna miss all of this.
Well, at the 13th, though, we can have one.
We'll have one 13th.
And then the 13th, if there's still more items, then we just call them, then just make it for the 27th or whatever, 2 weeks from that date.
Or if something comes up, just call for a special meeting.
Call a special meeting, right?
24 hours.
It's a lot of
Pretty good
work.
at those.
That's what we were trying to avoid though, right?
Yeah, the special meetings are really what we were trying to avoid, but like I said, our plan was to gauge the items that would be on the July 13th agenda, poll departments to see if there were items that might require action later in the month or early August before the August meeting. And if it looked like there were things that really should be addressed, to suggest that at the July 13th meeting. And I would stand by that recommendation. So if it does look like there's a need from staff, and also if council chooses at that time also, you could let us know.
Good with 1 in July, and if we need a second one in the 13th, and if we need a second one in July, we can determine that on the 13th, and if not, we'll see you in August.
That works for me.
We good with that?
I'm fine with that.
Yes, sir, we have routine things on this one.
Sounds good.
Say, calls for.
This brings us to items for discussion. Any items for discussion, anyone? And this brings us to citizen participation. At this time, if you would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature. The city clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time, and you will have 2 minutes to speak.
The first individual that we have is registered as Bill McNally, and I will unmute that person now. It appears you are self-muted, sir. And that person has dropped off. They may have hit it in error. I know people have said they've done that. The next individual we have is Doug Loffler, and I will unmute that individual now. Mr. Loffler, it appears your mic is open. Can you hear us?
Yes, I just like to address as a citizen and taxpayer. Remember one thing we passed concerning the city attorney. Transparency, council. What you passed tonight is not transparency. maybe the next time we have a situation where you have to address the city attorney, maybe we can, the next time, have Councilor Powers, Councilor Billwall, Councilor Henry on that call. And then the next time we have a problem, or we got a concern, maybe we can have 3 different councilors on there. And the last thing is, this resolution is passed, does this allow the city manager in a position to request help and information from the city attorney?
I'm having a hard time hearing.
I didn't hear that last question, Doug.
No, Doug, the manager always, and department heads through the manager can, what
Okay, then, as everybody is sitting at that table tonight, has been elected by a taxpayer of this community. So I would believe, and I would hope, that anybody sitting there that has a legal question should be able to go to the city manager. The city manager ought to be able to take care of that legal question with you, and then it's shared by the entire council. I think that would be transparent. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, on that, in the administrative regs, under relationship of administration, staff, and council, under 5B, that all instructions and directions of the manager will come from the city council as a whole after the approval of the majority of the city council. That's the administrative regs.
Approval of the whole city council.
That's, yeah, or majority, it's right there.
Okay, but information, and I'm not arguing against the city, the administrative regulations. Our whole point here, again, is the information going forward that we as other members of council aren't privy to. If the majority moves it forward, the majority moves it forward. But we're still not having, we're not part of the discussion in some of these meetings. That's the only concern here. Not suggesting and violating against the administrative regulations or anything, but going forward to have the discussion here or through email communication through the city manager or acting city manager to send forward the request so that we're all in the know regarding the matter going forward. That's the only, that's my only.
My apologies for speaking under citizen participation. I shouldn't have, but continue on.
City clerk, any more?
Yes, we have one more individual. That person is registered as Janelle Fisher, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears that you are self-muted. Person is self-muted. I'm unable to unmute them. Did you want me to move to the next to see if they're able to?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the next individual is registered as Scott McRoberts, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears your line is open.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could clarify the resolution that you passed tonight for a public hearing regarding the city police and fire chiefs. You stated how vital a role they play within their city departments. And yet you are not filling those positions even on an interim basis. How is that possible for that vital?
That was directed to you, John, so we'll wait for a response.
No, I appreciate your question. It's really not a question and answer period. It's citizen participation. You're allowed to comment. But we fully intend to appoint a fire chief and a police chief as soon as we have time. There's no urgency to do it. And so that's my answer.
Is that vital? How do you have time if they're that vital?
You'll be all right, Scott. Hang in there.
Yeah. That's fine.
I have one quick question, Your Honor, regarding personal appearances and citizen participation. Under citizen participation, isn't this dialogue with council?
No, it's not.
Not?
It can be.
But it's also.
It can be if
it's
you
also
choose.
difficult because you don't want to be disrespectful, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
so they ask you questions, you don't want to just sit there either, so.
I stood
I
right
do
there.
personal appearances as well, and that's why I guess that's the question I have. What's the difference between the two?
Well, it states in the, clerk has the 1 through 7. Normally, we used to always have it.
It was usually attached to the backside of the agenda when the public came in, they would get it.
For the public to be aware
Yes, you're
of
correct.
how the
Yes.
meeting goes. And it says in there, in public participation, that you will address, and you come to the mic, you address the council as a whole. You don't address one person or call one person out.
So how do we respond to?
That's
Concerns or
the
questions?
way, I didn't.
No, I'm
You're
not-
absolutely correct.
I-
You're absolutely correct,
Yeah,
Councilor
yeah.
Fisher, yes. That is
Okay,
what-
thank
that is
you.
what
It's
it
your
says.
choice, right?
Thank you for the clarity.
Anyone else?
So the only other person we have is registered as Janelle Fisher. That person does have their hand raised and
It's an
is
accident.
It's an accident?
Yeah.
Okay. We've confirmed that that is an accident, and I do not see any other individuals with their hand raised.
Okay. We have no need for executive session.
No, we do, Your Honor.
On
What?
There is an executive session.
our agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law.
I guess we go to executive session.
Who called that? We have an entity without a contract? Okay, all right, fair
Mayor,
enough.
if I may approach you?
Fair enough.
I'll make a motion, we move into executive session.
I'll second it.
Any action coming out of it?
I was gonna say, I do not anticipate any action coming out.
Continue with the motion to adjourn after executive session?
But I do request
so used
that
to
council
not being
attend
in law.
that.
Thank you.
So we do adjourn after?
We're good with adjourning after executive session? No action
Yeah.
coming out of it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Boom.
And then, may I ask who made the motion and seconded it, because I...
Mr. Reach made the motion, I'm not sure.
I second it.
Counselor Fisher.
Thank you.
I didn't even look at it because I'm so used to not having it.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure that you did have it, that's all.
My mom says she was trying to listen